International Political Movements by me. Thank you. So the first film, social and political movements that I will be talking about today. So the first one is the Arab Spring movement, specifically in Egypt, Israel and Palestine conflict, and the Hong Kong occupation movement, and the human rights abuses in Pakistan. Thank you. So why political movements happen? One reason could be democratization, to change the regime or the nature of the country. Another one is identity, an issue that is specifically stigmatized or criminalized in a state or society. For example, gender identity. Social justice, aim to organize for the disadvantaged in a struggle for social justice. Next slide. So the first film we watched was The Square, about the Arab Spring movement in Egypt. What I thought about this film. I personally really liked it because it talked about the revolutionaries themselves and the different people that they were, and the different political ideals that they believed in. And it was a roller coaster. You cheered for them when they won, but you felt bad for them when they were betrayed by the government. Takeaways. Takeaways. How foreign conflicts and protests are being addressed by the American media. Personally, I was 13 when this was happening, so I don't remember it being on TV, and one of the revolutionaries talked about this in the movie, about how they didn't see their protests or the stuff that was happening on TV or anywhere else. Something else that we talked about, political ideology, how it affects the portrayal of the political movements. So those were two of the two revolutionaries. One wanted liberal ideals in the country. They wanted freedom of speech, freedom of religion in their country, and the other was a part of the Muslim Brotherhood, and that reflected more conservative religious beliefs that they wanted implemented into the country, but they were still friends, so I thought that was really interesting to see on the screen. Next slide. 5 Broken Cameras, about the conflicts of Israel and Palestine. This one was a really sad movie. I thought so. It was pretty bad. The film is a personal account of the Israel and Palestine conflict. It was filmed of a father filming his son as he was born in the middle of the conflict. I liked this movie because I liked how it was filmed, the idea of like a dad taking a home video of his son, which I thought could be like reflected into other people. It could have been like my dad filming me as I take my first steps. So I think that's why it made the issue more personal and not just something you see on TV and on the news. So takeaways. How Israel and Palestine is also portrayed in American news. I think when we talk about that on TV or when you see it on the news, it's just like a headline. You just say, oh, Israel did this and Palestine did that. But then you don't really think much of it. It's just like another day, another dollar. But when you watch the movie, it becomes more of an issue about this family is hurting and they're taking away their home and there's violence, and you don't really see that on TV as Americans in the United States. Human rights abuses. There were a lot of them that was very difficult to watch. Next slide. This one was my favorite. So Joshua, Teenager versus a Superpower, about the Hong Kong occupancy movement. Here he is. So I personally really like this film because it was more about like a younger generation inspiring movements, and I think that's really inspiring to see. He was 13. That was impressive. Takeaways. Again, the portrayal of the movement in the United States, I think, was greater supported because it was a struggle of freedom against communist China, which is why I think we saw it more on TV and portrayed more in a more positive light than we would have seen the other two movements. Another takeaway, the National Education for Communist Support and how it reflects claims against critical race theory in American education. Can you pause it?